discussion on Impala Platinum. We've got Matt Swart in the room. He's a senior analyst with PSG, and he's going to be talking to us about Impala Platinum. Matt, take it away.
Thank you, Sarel. So my name's Matt, and I cover the resources for PSG. And today we will discuss Implats. It's quite a brief presentation. They came out with a production update, which is typically quite brief. And the summaries are as follows. So the production for the 9 months ending 31 March 2023 was 2% lower. Of that, their managed mines were up about 1%, JV ops were down about 3%, and third-party receipts were down 22%. Contributing to lower production was the tons milled were 4.6% higher, but the grades decreased, and production was impacted by power supply interruptions. So that occurred in South Africa and in Zimbabwe and impacted production by about 27,000 ounces. There were also a couple of safety stoppages at South African operations, which also contributed to lower production. Sales volumes declined 5%, and management kept the range of their guidance unchanged. But they did indicate that volumes would be towards the lower end of the range and costs towards the upper end of the range. And then they also provided an update about a week later on the RB Plats deal. So they've managed to, on the open market, increase their ownership to about 45%. The PRC still has about 10%, and they still haven't decided yet whether they're going to sell their stake to Implats or not. Implats is still waiting for two pending items. One is a compliance certificate by the takeover regulators, and the other is the JSE approval to list the offer consideration shares. So while that is still pending, Implats can extend the long stop date, which they've done multiple times throughout this deal. At the moment, the long stop date is the end of May, but they could extend that if these two items are remain pending. Just in terms of our valuation, since the last time we released a report on this, the value hasn't changed by much. So last time it was 150 Rand, now it's 153. That was mostly driven by increases in forward prices. The way that we value Implats and most of our miners is we take the guidance given by management on what they're going to produce. We assume that they're going to sell a similar level, and then we use forward prices to try forecast the income statement and get to EBITDA. So, and then we value that at a multiple. The multiple we use here is 3. That hasn't changed, but the forward prices have changed slightly. They increased a little bit, which drove a slight increase. So our current price is 153 Rand. There's a downside of about 16%. It's a little bit smaller because since we released this report, Implats has fallen a little bit. This morning, I think it was about 176. So that's how we value it. Bear in mind, it is quite odd to have a hold recommendation and downside of 16%. But just bear in mind that we also we're taking into consideration our portfolio. We do hold Implats in our portfolio, and we think that a lot of the other commodities are a bit overpriced, and platinum and PGMs is probably one of the better places to be. Obviously, with this, just to answer Sarel's question in the beginning about the benefits of the RB Plat, is that the Royal Bafokeng Platinum mines it neighbors the Implat's mines. So potentially, as I understand it, that Implats could access some of the platinum assets by using the same shafts or the existing shafts that Implats has, which will it'll bring down costs significantly, and it should shift Implats down the cost curve, and that would be very beneficial for them. And then, I don't know, Sarel, what order we're going to do this, if we're going to talk to the technicals or take questions first.
I think let's Shaun take us through the technicals, and then we'll start with the questions.
Good morning, everybody. Technicals on Impala. Long term, I'm still seeing the share a bit bearish. You can trade it just below that 200-day moving average. In the medium term, I'd say it's neutral, it's moving sideways. It's been moving sideways for quite a while. Obviously, it's consolidating, waiting for new information and things like that. But in the short term, yes, this is obviously I took a screen grab of the chart before the market opened this morning. So just still testing that upwards ascending trend line this morning. But since then, as Matt alluded to, it has broken below that support trend line in the short term. It's down nearly 4% this morning. It's now trading at 171.52. I'm seeing more downside on this. You can see also the bottom indicator of the MACD. It has crossed this trigger line, although it is still slightly up in overbought territory. So suggesting more downside potential. I anticipate it to come down to those at what I call a support zone. So first of all, you got at 159 support level, then you go 154, and then 146, which is quite close to our intrinsic value of 153. So at this point in time, if you're holding the share, then hold it. If you don't have it right now, I suggest maybe just watch and wait until it gets to support levels, buy at a lower price. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Shaun. I kind of agree with you. It looks like it is trending slightly lower. The support's around 150. It hasn't been there since July last year. Before that, it was the previous September. So definitely some downside to come, it seems. But then again, the deal could be on tomorrow, Matt? And then it'll fly away. So I'd rather stay away from something like this for the moment. As Shaun has commented, rather wait for better levels before you get in. And that backs up the view by the analysts to say that it's slightly expensive at the current valuations, although they started analyzing it at 180 and it's already dropped to 170, but we think it's going to go down to around the 150 mark. You're welcome to post your questions in the chat. I see there was a comment by Becker who says, could we put it in presentation mode? It's now after the fact, Matt, but you guys can drop me an email at sarel.snyman@PSG, and I'll gladly send on the PDF to you of the slides so that you can go through it again. And then Vessel says, if the valuation's that high, why not a sell recommendation? What's keeping you on hold, especially with Shaun's detail presented? Vessel, I think I have partially answered it in that we think there's slight downside there, but it's not necessarily worth dumping it because then we're starting to play a game of timing the market, which is a short-term thing. And our analysts, if they do have it in their portfolios, would rather keep it and see what happens should a deal come up with Royal Bafokeng or not. Typically, in a space where you manage a portfolio, you really take profits or exercise an absolute stop before you liquidate stuff when the analysts come out with a hold recommendation. Matt, I don't know if you want to comment on it. Have I got it right?
I think Yeah, so a huge part of the call is the portfolio decision, because we do hold implants in the portfolio, and if you look at other commodities, so gold is very expensive, and those counters have run a lot this year. Iron ore, copper, also quite expensive. So we like platinum or PGMs. Although there's downside, this is probably the best of a bad bunch, and we don't want to be underweight precious metals. The other reason is that typically with these commodity companies, they're so volatile. You'll see on the range between the bull and the bear case, it's huge. It's quite a wide range. So in a week or two, it could be back at at our intrinsic value, and then a couple of weeks later back to where it is now or lower. So we are quite benchmark cognizant. So that's partly why we've got a hold on this one.
Okay, I see there's a question there from Herman. What are your views on the ZAR USD and also the platinum group metals? I'll leave the platinum group metals to Matt. As far as the ZAR is concerned, I think we do have some issues. I mean, even before the rand broke through 1850, before the inflation news yesterday, and I think it's a one-way street, considering that there are very few foreign investors prepared to bring cash this side, as things stand, as we know, with load shedding, the troubles at Transnet and so on. Maybe the only thing going for us is the Rugby World Cup, where we may do well and people will get to drink some beer. So I suppose Anheuser-Busch, it's probably not a bad idea. But platinum metals and betting on the rand, I think it's betting that the rand's going to go weaker. I don't know if you want to comment on the platinum prices, Matt, if you think they're going to rise as well.
Yeah, so obviously it's always hard to call commodity prices. Last couple of last week or two, platinum and palladium have done quite well. They've increased, but the rhodium price, that's quite concerning. That's fallen a lot, and it actually contributes quite a big portion of revenue to all the PGMs. So that's a bit concerning, but it all comes down to supply and demand at the end of the day. And there's very few platinum producers in the world. It's basically all the platinum and PGMs come from mostly South Africa, Southern Africa, so it can include Zim as well, and then a little bit in Russia and Canada. And so there's with all the issues that we've got in South Africa, like load shedding, it further constrains the supply of platinum, which should, in the long term, be quite good for the platinum price. In 6 months, who knows?
Okay, thank you, Matt. I see Dennis says, what's the correlation between Impala and the PGM and the platinum price? Is it, have you got a graph or something to show the correlation between the platinum stocks and the platinum price itself? We know there's lots of issues around labor prices or labor costs and the influence that labor does have on the cost price of the production of the metal.
Yeah, so I don't
interesting question, yeah.
I don't have the exact number, but typically they run together, same like gold, and the gold producers will run together, and then sometimes it's offset by movements in the rand and dollar. And
I don't think it'll have necessarily a beta of 1, if we use market speak. A correlation of 1 means that it runs exactly like the platinum price, tick for tick. as I've mentioned, with the labor issues they have and so on, I think it has a close correlation, but not as tight. Becker says that I see Shaun posted a rand weakness chart for us that shows there that the rand is going on its way up, which is actually the inverse of what we perceive. Weakness, the rand is getting more expensive against the dollar, and that's why that price is going up. Becker says, does Transnet have an impact on platinum? Yes, they do, because they're supposed to transport stuff, and they're not doing that at the moment. So yes, I think these guys have to find other ways of transporting their input stuff. So yeah, whilst they're not, I think, transporting platinum itself, they definitely transport equipment and stuff which doesn't reach the mines at the moment. Gordon says, how does Implats compare with other mining companies like Amplats and Northam? Matt?
So it is a little bit cheaper out of the so Amplats is the most expensive one. Some would say it's a high quality company, and part of the reason why it's got a higher valuation is because the mines they have are a lot shallower, so they don't have to go underground as much. In fact, they are a lot of Amplats mines are open pit mines, so basically getting a tractor in there and excavate, and you can find platinum. Whereas the other guys, you got to go mine shafts and go underground. Yeah, so that's got a big part to the valuation differences. We don't look at Northam in much detail. Yeah.
So Northam's not one of the stocks on your radar.
So I mean, out of the platinum producers, we like Implats and Sibanye. They're better. They offer more value. They're cheaper to get access to platinum, whereas Amplats trades at a bit of a premium. Sibanye is also quite nice because it's got about 20% exposure to gold, so it's a little bit of a hedge.
So you got a bit of diversification there. I see Virgil says how many percentage so far they hold in RB Plats. I think Matt did mention it. It's 45%. PIC holds 10% of RB Plats. Matt, correct me if I'm wrong. Should the PIC decide to sell their stake to Implats, it would take them over 50%, which as a listed company, they have to then make an offer to minorities in RB Plats. So I think that kind of answers James's question. Should investors that still have RB Plat hold on considering the consolidation with Impala? I think you should, because if the deal goes through on the Impala side, you will get an offer from Impala to buy out the minority stake, or I think the share price might actually jump a little bit.
I think as far as I know, I think the level is around like 80% or 85% where they have to offer minorities. At 50, just over 50, I don't think they are compelled to do that. Okay. Remember, Northam still owns. I think it's in the high 30s.
Okay.
And they don't want to sell. They're not sellers, so they've got to make up they've got to get that control by either the PIC selling to them, so convincing the PIC to sell, and then also bear in mind the PIC also owns quite a large chunk of both Northam and Implats, and then the rest they can get from minority shareholders, which they have been doing in the open markets.
Yeah, I'll double check and then I'll comment on that again next week. I might have it wrong. Let's see, any further questions? Doesn't look like it, Matt. I think if there are no further questions, guys, apologies. I haven't got that WhatsApp group up and running yet. I've got some tech issues here, and I really want to try and automate it from my side to make it easier for us to maintain that WhatsApp group and get you guys tiniest messages and that. So please just bear with me. We'll get that sorted. And then, wait, I see James, before we close, I see James has the last question here. He says, Amplats and Sibanye are large nickel producers. Nickel, any comments on nickel?
No. So as a percent of the revenue, it's tiny. It's quite minor. So we actually don't even consider nickel at all in our valuations.
Okay, thanks for that update, Matt. Hope that answers your question, James. Guys, if there are no further questions, then we're going to close. And we'll see you again next week. Thank you very much for joining us today. Thanks for your time. Thank you, Shaun. Thanks, Matt, for your input. Very insightful. Thank you very much. Have a nice Thursday. Cheers, guys.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.